Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining in the call. I'll give a quick introduction to the speakers today. So, on the call, we have Mr. G. Pradeep Kumar, who is our CEO. We have Mr. Vinay Pahadia, who is our Chief Investment Officer. We have Anju Sarkar, who is a fund manager for the fixed income side. And I'm Saurabh Jain. I take care of sales and marketing at Union Mutual Fund. And once again, thank you for joining in the call. Hope all of you are doing well, safe and sound. And Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. In advance. Today's call is more on the questions that we have been, asking for last few days. And I'm very happy to see that already there are some 50 odd questions on the Q&A session. And my request to all of you is that keep typing in the questions over there. We want to make this call as interactive as possible, and we'll be taking almost all the questions in the call. We'll keep our content short, and we'll try to cover the entire content through the Q&A session towards the second part of the presentation. So without taking much time, over to you, Vinay.
Thank you, Saurabh, and a warm welcome to all the participants. Uh, I'll dive straight into our market outlook and the topic for this webinar. Uh, just give me a moment so that I can share the screen. Uh, yeah. Uh, so, uh, First and foremost, before we start, I think one thing which I wanted to make it um, more clear to the audience is that we at Union Mutual Fund have developed a very proprietary tool to help judge valuation of individual companies. Uh, because of this tool, which we call as the fair value approach, we are able to understand whether some companies are cheap or expensive. This is very different than the very popular approach of judging companies based on P multiple. So the popular approach is that if the P multiple of a company is low, it is cheap company, and if the P multiple of a company is high, it's a expensive company. According to us, that is not the correct approach. Our proprietary approach focuses on four factors to derive the fair value of any company. These four factors are earnings growth, returns on equity, risk-free rate of return, and the fourth is riskiness of the underlying business. So all of these four factors combined help us understand what should be the fair worth of a company. Now, after we judge and determine such a fair worth of the company, we then apply this to the market. So, for example, when we are discussing our update, we will be discussing about Nifty fair values. Nifty consists of 50 companies. We have judged and estimated the fair values of each of these companies on a bottom-up basis, and then we have then backwards calculated what should be the fair value of Nifty, and we have tried to do this over the last 7-8 years to see how this has progressed in real time. So all of this all of these aspects are things which we are going to discuss today. So first slide talks about how this fair value is very tightly correlated with the GDP. So you have been hearing about a lot of economy related discussions, and many a times market participants very loosely comment that markets and GDP are very two different animals. GDP may go wherever it wants, but on a bottom-up basis, there are always opportunities, which is always the case. However, on an aggregate basis, on an overall basis, markets are correlated with fair value, and fair value of the market is very tightly related with the GDP. So when we have seen GDP growth rate accelerating, we have seen the fair value going up. And when we saw the GDP growth rate decelerating or plunging, like we are seeing in this current year, we are seeing fair value also slowing down, or in some cases falling. So this is the key message, that fair value and GDP are very tightly correlated. FY21, which is the current year's GDP growth, on a nominal terms is expected at -5%, and as a result, even the fair value of Nifty is expected to substantially show a lower growth. Now, this is a very important slide and the basis of our market views. If you closely look at this slide, there are three lines. The red line depicts the fair value of Nifty over the last 9-year period. The blue line depicts the annual change in Nifty with the base index to FY12. And the green line depicts the earnings growth or the earnings of Nifty. So now the most popular approach in judging market valuation is P multiple. So you would hear most of the commentators talk about Nifty P multiple or market P being high. And the reason is the divergence between this red and the green line. You would notice that the P multiple of Nifty has consistently gone up simply because the underlying constituents have changed. Some of the companies' valuation is now dependent on businesses which do not generate significant profits at this point of time, but are very valuable, so on and so forth. There are a whole host of other factors which is beyond the scope of this discussion. We have published a full white paper and a research note highlighting why this happens, why the market P is not a correct way of judging markets. And clearly this divergence between the Nifty PAT and Nifty is highlighting the anomaly. However, you would notice that the markets are very tightly correlated with the underlying fair value. And this is the precise reason we were screaming at top of our voice in March, April, May, June this year, highlighting that markets were at a substantial discount to their fair values, and hence the potential return in the market is very high. Now, as we see the situation today, the environment has changed. The pendulum, the market's pendulum has completely swung from very high level, an unprecedented level of fear to some greed. And hence, you would see the title of this slide is Markets Are Now Entering Expensive Zone. We want to caution investors that be careful. Markets are now trading at a price which is higher than its current fair value, and the fair value growth has also reduced because of the GDP growth reduction, and hence markets are now in an expensive zone. I would end my commentary with a short summary of our market view. First, what are the key positives for Indian equities? The biggest positive for not only Indian equities, but global equities is significant quantitative easing by central banks across the world, including our own central bank, Reserve Bank. Now, many of you would think that what is the relation between interest rates and equities? The interest rate, the relation is very, very strong. I would want to give you a simple example. Many of you invest in fixed income. So if you invest in a bond which has a modified duration of, let's say, 10 years, 1% fall in interest rate means the bond prices should go up by 10% with the same coupon rate. Now, equities, based on our internal research, we have derived this hypothesis that equities are a very high duration asset, much higher than any other asset class available for common investors today. And hence, fall in interest rates has a huge impact on market valuations. And hence, this is a big tailwind. The second positive for Indian equities is better than expected economic recovery from the impact of the pandemic. In March, all of us were grappling about what is the impact of this pandemic, how are the lockdowns going to impact, so on and so forth. But as time progressed, as we got more and more data, we understood that the impact is much lower than what was initially thought of. For example, in June, on a consensus basis, we took a consensus of about 10 to 12 institutional agencies. The impact of the pandemic on GDP for this year and next year was approximately in total about 12 to 13%. As we speak now, due to upgrades in GDP estimates, this 12 to 13% has reduced to just about 10 to 11%. So this is the better than expected economic recovery which we are talking about, which is a good positive for equities. Third is low corporate taxes. I think most of us have forgotten that government doled out a very big stimulus to corporate India in the form of lower taxes, and that is expected to result in a meaningful improvement in fair values going forward as well. The second one is in this section is the government stimulus. So government of India for the first time has introduced very innovative incentive mechanisms like the production linked incentives or the PLI scheme. This scheme endeavors to reward companies for doing higher production, higher sales. So if you do sales beyond a threshold, you will get incentives. And that is what is getting a lot of people excited. And this is expected to meaningfully add to the overall GDP growth for the next 5 years. What are the key negatives for equities, especially the Indian equities today? As we highlighted, the biggest negative which we can foresee is expensive valuations. And expensive valuations are basically nothing but borrowing some of the returns from the future into the present. And hence, the potential returns get reduced. Having said that, we would want to reiterate that the underlying fair value growth in equities is still going to be extremely strong. And despite this expensive valuation and the headwind because of that, equities are still expected to deliver robust returns over a 5-year period compared to most other asset classes. As a fund house, we have neutral positioning across the cap curve, which means the potential returns in all the three segments, large, mid, and small, is similar, and they are similarly valued and are similarly and are attractive across the board. We are overweight IT sector and telecom sector, and we are underweight utilities and consumer discretionary sectors. And finally, the big conclusion is, what should investors do in the current scenario? We recommend that investors should invest their incremental capital in dynamic asset allocation products as a means of investment. These products take valuations into account and reduce their exposure to markets when valuations are expensive, and substantially increase their allocation when the markets are cheap. So for example, Union Balanced Advantage Fund is an example of such a category where which follows an approach which is very valuation driven, uh, and in line with the current expensive valuations, we have also reduced our exposure in this fund in the markets. With that, I will stop my comments and hand over to Saurabh. Saurabh.
Thank you, Vinay. And Pradeep, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Saurabh and Vinay, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining this call. Interesting times, of course, end of the year, and there is a bit of that usual Christmas holiday mood, which normally sets in, I understand. So at the same time, this is also typically an interesting time for the markets also, because this is also the time when, as far as foreign investors are concerned, they take stock of their portfolio, next year's strategy, allocations, etc. get decided. So there is a lot of focus on what the FIIs will do, where the flows will go, etc. And as Vinay said, there is a lot of cheap money floating in the system across the world, And some of that has found its way into the Indian market quite naturally, because our economy is expected to recover faster than many of the other similar economies. Okay, and the government has taken steps which should accelerate, the recovery of the economy. Corporate earnings have been better than expected. So all that is there. But why we decided to do this call and have this interaction with you all is that, we have always said that we will try to do what is good for investors. Okay. So we were very proactive in telling you when the markets were attractively priced, advising you that, it's a great time to come into equity. See, whether investors listen or not is not in our hands, but it's our duty as AMC and your duty as a distributor to really tell the investors, what is good for them. So we gave those calls back in March, April, May, June, and until recently. And now when we believe that a different approach is required, we thought it's our duty to come and tell you that also. At the same time, let us understand one thing. The medium to long-term fundamentals of our economy and our market remain intact. If you ask us what is our view on the equity market for the next 3 years or 5 years, we are very positive. We are not worried at all. Okay. So anybody wanting to invest in equity, yes, if they are really long-term, can wait for 5 years without really checking the NAV on a daily basis, by all means. But for many investors who are somewhat conservative, do not like to see too much volatility in their portfolio, we believe, it is a good time, good idea to guide them towards investing in balanced funds or balanced advantage funds. As Vinay mentioned, balanced advantage fund is a wonderful product. Okay. We are not, saying this just because, they have done well in the last 1 year, or because, Union Balance Advantage Fund is one of the best in its category. All that is true. And we are confident that we can sustain the performance. But Balance Advantage Fund, the fundamental benefit of that is that it gives you equity exposure at a much lower risk or much lower volatility. Okay. Compared to a pure equity fund. Now, last 1 year, maybe on an average, many of the pure equity funds, particularly large cap, multi-cap, or might have given, average, say 15-16% or so, while our BAF has given close to 20%. I'm not saying that will always happen. May not happen, will not happen. Okay. But at the same time, what we need to understand is that being out of the market is a bigger risk today. You see, while we believe that the markets are expensive compared to the fair value, and you need to be cautious, we cannot say, nobody can say that this is the top of the market, right? Market can easily run up further from here. We don't know, because market is also given by liquidity, at least in the short term. So being out of the market is a big risk. We know that, many people claim that market is expensive, I'll book profits, I'll wait. When the market is at the bottom, we will invest. Now, this is all very easy to say. Typically, what happens when the market is at its bottom, sentiments are also very, very bad, very negative. And at that time, very few investors will have the courage to go and invest. We have seen that in the past also. Whenever the market has been at the bottom, sentiment is poor, and people don't have the conviction or the courage to go and invest, and they miss out on the rally, which is why it is important to stay invested. Otherwise, nobody can time the market perfectly. Nobody can time the market. I mean, it's not, possible at all. And we as fund managers, if we are saying that it's not possible to time the market, I think, for most of the population, it will be impossible. So rather than being left out of the market, we are recommending that you take exposure to funds like the Balanced Advantage Fund or even the Hybrid Equity Fund. These are different products, but both are good. in the sense that Balance Advantage Fund today, Union Balance Advantage Fund has an exposure of probably close to 52% or so to equity, right? While you have hybrid equity fund, which on an average will maintain about 70% equity exposure. So both these funds will give lower equity exposure compared to a pure equity product, but will keep you invested and will continue to give you exposure. And the beauty of BAF is that when the market becomes cheaper, we will also increase the allocation. We were at 80% at one stage. We have brought it down to 52. And if the market continues to run up, continues to remain expensive, we will further reduce. You know, it's not so long ago that we were at 30%. From 30, we took it to 80. We are back to 52. So we will do that adjustment. So people will always have the exposure. They don't have to worry about the level of the market or timing the market. And we think that is a product that people should look at. So unless somebody is very, very strong in its conviction that they can wait for 5 years or longer, fresh investment into equity is better to go into BAF or hybrid equity fund. So that is one. The other point that we wanted to make, because I saw some questions on sector and sectoral funds, etc. So while Vinay mentioned about sectors that we are positive, we are overweight, like IT, telecom, we are not in favor of, as a company, we are not in favor of having a sector fund as an open-ended fund. The reason being, no sector really runs forever. So it is all good to say that, right now, a particular sector looks good and we launch a fund. People may make money for some time, but I have never seen anyone going and telling the investors that, the story is over, please take your money back. So very often investors end up with a poor experience because they don't know when to exit. So we are not in favor of a sector fund, but we would really recommend, funds which are broad-based, whether it's a BAF or a multi-cap fund, etc., where the fund manager has the freedom to choose the sectors and they will select what is, the best possible one at a given point of time. So that's a philosophy that Union Mutual Fund has been practicing. As you all know, we have been following our investment process and the fair value approach for the last, more than 2.5 years, close to 3 years. And the results are very visible in consistency and superiority of the performance. And we are quite confident that we can sustain it. We will always try to, communicate what we believe is the best thing for the investors. So we are also human. We may make mistakes. So you must excuse that. You must pardon that. But knowingly, we will not give the wrong advice. So what we are recommending today is coming out of our analysis and our conviction. So we will try to be transparent. We will try to say what is good for investors in as simple a language as we can. But rather than talking for too long, I think I'll hand it over back to Saurabh, and so that we can take up the questions one by one. And before I close, let me thank you once again and wish you Merry Christmas and a great New Year. I think we all deserve a good break and a much better year. Thank you. Over to you, Saurabh.
Thank you, Pradeep. So I've tried to categorize the questions into 3-4 broad categories. And since we have talked about BAF and there are a lot of questions on BAF, so I'll just combine 2-3 questions. Vinay, is that okay? And then you can answer them, because if you take all the questions.
Sure. It's better to combine.
Yeah. Okay. So Mr. Sanjay Prashad from Patna had asked, what is our strategy for BAF to decide the allocation? And Mr. KK Venkatachalam from Bangalore had asked a specific question that, are we still very comfortable holding a higher level of equity in BAF at these valuations?
Yeah, so I think both these questions are very similar. So I would first highlight our process which we follow in allocating to equities in the Balanced Advantage Fund. So the Union Balanced Advantage Fund follows a proprietary model which is called as the Union Market Pulse Indicator. This model is based on, once again, our in-house developed fair value approach, wherein we estimate the fair value of Nifty on a real-time basis. And if the market, the actual market is trading at a premium to that fair value, the equity allocation will be lower than 50. If the market is trading at a price which is lower than the fair value, then the equity allocation will be higher than 50%. And if the market is at its fair value, then the equity allocation will be at 50% for the balanced advantage fund. So how much above and below 50, it will be decided by the extent of undervaluation and overvaluation. So this is the simple valuation based model which is followed at the fund house. Remember, this is very different than the popular price to earning and the price to book model, which is very popular. And the reason why we are saying is that we have seen in our testing that both P multiple and price to book multiple based valuation can give you very, very different and misleading results. We can have a very a separate webinar on what is UMPI all about, why the P multiples can mislead. But for the moment, I would highlight that it is the fair value approach is theoretically and practically superior to the popular approaches, which is getting used practically in the Union Balanced Advantage Fund. At the moment, as I highlighted, that markets are trading at a premium valuation, and hence we are significantly in the reduction mode in terms of our equity allocation in the Balanced Advantage Fund.
Thanks, Vinay. The next question is, going ahead, how will BAF be able to maximize the return? This is asked by Rajendra Sita Vidya from Pune. And the second question which is related is that markets are at all-time high. कौन सा fund सही होगा? I think we have already answered that. This is asked by Mr. Roop Singh from Kanpur. We still recommend that Balanced Advantage Fund and Hybrid Equity Fund are the two products which are recommended for clients at this point of time. So if you can give a view going ahead, how do you see BAF generating returns for next 3 years, 4 years?
Sure. So I think the way to visualize Balanced Advantage Fund is like, this is a fund which has two pockets. The first pocket is fixed deposit type of a pocket, and the second pocket is equity markets. Now, money is there in both these pockets. Let's say we start with equal money in both the pockets. Now, if the stock market is cheap, we will take some money from the fixed deposit pocket and put it in equities. If the market turns further, it becomes cheaper, then we'll pull out more money from the fixed deposit pocket and put it in equity. If the market is very, very cheap, then we'll pull out all the money from the fixed deposit pocket and put it in equity. And we will wait. That will maximize the overall return simply because we are investing when the markets are cheaper. Now, when the tide turns, as we have seen in this year itself, in 1 year, the markets have swung from cheap to expensive. So imagine the impact on something on a fund like Balanced Advantage. What happens when the market turns expensive? All the money which has been collected in the equity pocket starts gradually being shifted into the fixed income pocket. What happens is the fixed income pocket is safe. It ensures that your wealth is protected. The equity pocket has already done its job because the markets are expensive now. They have delivered very handsome returns. So now this fund will keep allocating some money from the equity pocket to the fixed income pocket to ensure that all your hard-earned money is turned into sort of a safe haven. So this is how the Balanced Advantage Fund maximizes the overall investor return. it is not correct to look at balance advantage funds return and just compare it to any equity return. The best way to compare a balance advantage fund return is combine any equity fund return along with all the fixed deposits you have kept in your bank and see what the total return for this combined sum is, and then compare it with the balance advantage fund. So I think that is the approach for the balance advantage fund with which we are approaching it.
Thanks, Vinay. Now we are moving to questions on market. So Mr. Hari from Mumbai has asked an interesting question. He's saying in markets, the trend seen is that FIs sell on lows and DIs sell at peak because FIs have hedge position. Current situation also is very similar, where DIs are selling and FIs are buying. Does it mean that the time for redemption for mutual fund and book our profit for our clients?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question because it is the most popular question we get in many of our meetings. I don't know why, most of the people are very obsessed with flows, either from FIIs or from the DIIs. I think you should always imagine money is like water. It will always find its place. If there is a potential to make higher risk adjusted return, money will definitely flow in that place. It is not that suddenly some money is stupid money, it is flowing because it is, there is a lot of money, etc., etc. It is not like that. Water finds its own level. Money is like water. It will find its own level. You and I as investors cannot profit from looking at this data. You and I as investors can only profit if we look at what is happening to the fair value. Like for example, in Mahabharat, we all heard about Dronacharya teaching Arjun and all his disciples to shoot arrows. So he asked Yudhishthir, what can you see? Yudhishthir saw the sky, Bhim saw the fruits. Only Arjun saw the eye of the bird. So the point is, all of us are looking at the markets. We are seeing flows, which is in the form of, the blue sky, the fruits. Someone sees a big investor buying, selling, etc. But the eye of the bird is the fair value. If the fair value is growing, the markets today or tomorrow are going to deliver returns in line with that. And that is why I would just summarize and recommend that please do not look at any of the flow related data. Focus your attention on what is happening to the underlying fundamentals. That is going to pull off returns in equities.
Thanks, Vinay. The next question, I've combined 4 questions which have asking a view on sectors. So there are 3 questions typically on sector, which is pharma, IT, and specifically banking sector. The view on these 3 sectors. And one question, which is a theme-based question, not a sector-based question, is that I have a lot of clients' money into infrastructure fund. Should I continue? Should I redeem? Should I do SIPs going forward? So if you can address these, and then we'll take next question.
Sure. So as far as the sectors are concerned, in terms of IT and pharma, we are very positive on both these sectors. However, we are most bullish on the IT sector by a wide margin, simply because according to us, the IT sector is one of the key beneficiaries of the change in the environment due to the pandemic. And most companies, be it Indian companies or global companies, have accelerated their spending on IT. So in the past, IT used to be just an expenditure to enhance customer service, to improve the overall look and feel. And most of the IT decisions, even not only in India, but also abroad, they used to be taken by just the IT department. However, due to the pandemic, IT has moved from the IT department to the corner office, to the boardrooms, and CEOs are now taking decision on accelerating IT spending, because spending on IT is ensuring survival of the companies, not improvement. And hence, there is a complete shift in demand for IT services which is where most of the Indian companies are standing to gain from, and hence, based on our internal analysis, despite the outperformance of the sector still presents a lot of potential, and we are overweight this sector. By contrast, the pharma sector, it at the start of the pandemic, it was extremely cheap and attractive. There was some improvement in the underlying fair values due to the pandemic, but the gain in market prices was also substantial, and hence the overweight position in pharma, while it is still there, it is substantially reduced. So our big overweight is IT, to some extent pharma, and also meaningfully in telecom. So these are the sectors where we are overweight on. That's the question was on banking sector. In banking sector, we were underweight in the start of the pandemic because we thought that this is a sector which will have the maximum negative impact of the pandemic. So for example, all of these retail borrowers, they would be impacted because many of them, in fact, at that point of time, we were seeing loss of income, we were seeing a lot of retrenchment related news, etc. So it was expected that retail loan books of banks would show a big impact. It was also expected that the small and medium enterprises would start defaulting. But what has happened is we have been positively surprised by the incoming data. The pandemic has had an impact on retail segment of the market, on SME segment of the market, but the impact is far lower than what was earlier estimated. The share prices, however, corrected far more, and hence, according to us, the risk reward became turned very attractive, and hence we changed our underweight position to equal weight and neutral position in banks and financial services sector somewhere about 2 months back.
Vinay, there's a
So
follow-up
that's where
question on
we are.
banking.
In terms of
Sorry, Vinay. On the banking, there's a follow-up question by Shubhankar Chakrabarti from Calcutta. How do you see NPAs going up in the next 2-3 years in the banking industry?
So NPAs were expected to spike up very substantially in this year, as I said, because of the pandemic-related issues. However, most of the banks and NBFCs have made huge provisions to counter those expected increase in NPAs, and in fact, we are seeing some positive surprises in terms of non-performing loans. So net optically, from the next quarter onwards, we will see a spike up in NPAs for banks and financial services companies, but all of that is almost more or less is been accounted for in the estimated valuations. I think Saurabh, you also asked a question by a gentleman on infrastructure funds, and as Pradeep highlighted, sector-based funds are too risky to have a material exposure. So it is like a thematic product, have a small exposure to the theme, and you should not be like Abhimanyu. You know when to enter the war, but you don't know when to exit. So while you have entered the scheme, knowing all this great prospects for future, you should also know when to exit. So that is the challenge in most of the thematic products, and hence we would recommend that have a smaller exposure. Infra, while it's a good theme, the problem with infra as a theme is that the number of companies which are really participating in the infra theme, which are good quality companies, is limited because the return on capital in infrastructure sector is far lower than in many other sectors. So while the top line growth is good, the free cash generation and the value creation is limited, and that is the challenge in this sector. But we are reasonably positive from a cyclical perspective, and we are reasonably well exposed to the infrastructure sector in all our multi-cap products.
Thanks, Vinay. There's a follow-up question on this by Mr. Darshan Pai from Bombay. How do you see demand in rural India over the next 5 years? Picking up?
I see a good in demand. In fact, the demand has already been, the rural Indian demand has been the driver of demand during the pandemic. So urban demand was significantly impacted, rural demand was less impacted because the impact of the pandemic was far higher in urban India.
And do we have an internal estimate on the actual divestment that will take place in India for next 3 years? What
No,
government
we
is
don't have
planning?
estimate because that doesn't help. What will we do with that? No.
Okay. And as a fund house, do we have any exposure to defense stocks?
Yeah, we would be having some exposure to some defense stocks on a bottom-up basis, but yeah, these are companies which are having a diversified exposure, not just defense, and many of them are very good quality businesses, and they're going fast. So that's the reason we are
Okay.
exposed to them.
Thanks, Vinay. So the next few questions are on the time horizon of market, which I'll take up. So there are multiple questions on the upper level of market. Where do we see the lower level of market? Where do we see? And recommended product for the, can we come in equity for 1 year or 1.5 years? So ideally, even if you're looking at, forget about a pure equity fund, even if you're looking at a balanced advantage fund or the hybrid equity fund category, I would say that you should look at a minimum period of 3 years. 1.5 year, now this product can be an optimal solution for the need of the client. When you're getting into product like a BAF, you should have minimum 3 years of time horizon over there. As a fund house, we do not have any view on market for 6 months, 1 year, 18 months. We do not have even uh, the where the market can go up to maximum or where it can fall down to maximum. Because as a fund house, we follow a fundamental way of analyzing market. We we look at technical charts, but for different purpose. But when we look at the valuation is completely dependent on fundamental factors. So if you have to ask, our view is there for next 5 years or 3 years on the equity market, right? And that view is that if you are looking in the coming in the market for next 5 years, markets are at slight premium right now. So one question which is there is the market in like bubble zone? We don't think currently market is in like bubble zone. Typically bubble zones happen when market goes to a premium of 25, 30%, so on and so forth. Right now we are not there. All we are saying is that market is currently at a premium, which means your future returns have come down slightly. If you have invested in the market in the like month of March, April, your potential returns were much more higher. And now when you're buying in the market, your returns have come down, but they are still better than most of the traditional investment options. So we are not giving a call that markets are expensive, get out of equity market. All we are saying is that markets have gone at a premium. They are not in the bubble. You should cut down some exposure, or you should come into products like balanced advantage fund and hybrid equity fund category, which is what we are recommending. Am I right, Vinay?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I will just add, Saurabh, that a lot of people have this question on what is this long term, short term. Why do people just talk about long term in equities, etc. This year is a fantastic explanation for all of that. When we were talking to many investors in our roadshows, in our discussions in March, in April, in June, about investing in the market, everyone was talking about, a very big depression in the market, a big fall in the market. There were comparisons with the Great Depression in America. I have still have some of those charts comparing Nifty with American market right in 1929, and then what is the potential downside, etc. So all of those clearly were there. It was all floating around. Problem was that people were not ready to look at the next 3 years. So when in January we were talking about 3 years, 5 years, in March we were saying that your potential return over a 3-year period is going to be strong. So the next question was, but what happens in the next 3 months? No one knew what could have happened in the next 3 months, right? Sitting in March, who would have thought that we will see a new peak in the market this year itself? No one saw. And that is the reason none of us is in a position to tell you when will the market fall or when will the market rise. But as professional investors, we are in a position to guide you that over a period of 3 years, 5 years, what can you expect when you invest in overall basket of equities, without looking at what will happen in the next 3 months or 6 months or even 1 year.
Thanks, Vinay. The next question is from Ashish Kumar Devta from Varanasi. Isn't prudent to go for equity investment in bulk? Uh, if you are looking at a balance advantage fund or hybrid equity fund, I think it's perfectly okay to invest over there in bulk because these are the allocation product. And I would say that when you're looking at 3 to 5 years, getting into a category like this at this point of time makes a lot of sense. Uh, Vinay, the next question is where do you see, do you see GDP going in India for next 3 to 5 years?
We see a strong double-digit growth in our nominal GDP over the next 3 to 5 years. In fact, for a very long period of time. And that is the basis of investing in India. Simply because when you own a basket of stocks which are exposed to such a growing GDP, your results will also mimic the underlying growth in that GDP. So we are very positive on nominal GDP growth for India, and hence we are also optimistic about market outlook over a longer period of time.
Thanks, Vinay. Pradeep, can you take the next question? The question is on international funds. That international funds have become popular in last 1 or 2 years. And what is your view on international fund and how should we advise our clients on that? And there's a follow-up question: is
Mhm.
that does one client has to necessarily invest in international fund? Aren't Indian equity market good enough?
Yeah, I think that's a dilemma which many people face. And as I had to share that, I am also an investor, so I have asked this question myself also. What should I do? So if you look at, if I had to give a broader context, okay, we keep talking about, FII is investing, FII is investing. So if you understand, why are they investing in India? So why is a US based fund investing in India? The reason is that not that, they don't believe in US markets. The reason is diversification. Just the way we say that, don't put all your money in one stock or don't put all your money in one fund, get the benefit of diversification. At some stage, diversification to other markets also become important. Okay. So this is the reason, say, FIIs invest in India. And for the same reason, we can consider investing in other markets. Not that there is anything wrong with the Indian market or we don't believe in Indian markets, but if you already have a good exposure to the Indian market, particularly the Indian equity market, then it is worth considering getting a bit of diversification by investing in the overseas markets. Okay, it is purely diversification. It doesn't mean that the American market, US market, or the European market will do better than Indian market. May not. Perhaps India will do much better than those markets. We don't know that at this stage. But it is always good not to put all your eggs in one basket. So for a mature investor, somebody who has already got good exposure to the Indian equity market, it is a good idea to put perhaps 5% and not more than 10% in some of the international funds. But there, our advice would be choose carefully, go for the more familiar themes. Don't try to choose very exotic and specialized funds, because just the way if somebody comes to invest for a first time investor in Indian market, you don't go with a small cap fund as a first fund to invest in, perhaps, right? You would recommend a broader fund like a multi-cap fund or a tax saver or a large cap fund, something like that. So choose a slightly broader, less risky fund and as a first fund, and then try to expand later on. So that's our advice. Yes, it's an opportunity which we ourselves are working on, and I think sometime in the next few months, I'm confident that we will be able to come up with a good product for our investors.
Thanks, Pradeep. There are a lot of questions on small and mid cap funds. So, basically, the theme of the questions is, Vinay, that what is the view on small and mid cap going forward? And if someone has a 10-year view, is it okay to be in a small cap fund? And also, is it a time to get aggressive into small cap sector? Because there has been a lot of views coming in the market that there's still a lot of returns which can be generated from the small cap. And so is it okay if you come into small cap aggressively for next 2-3 years from this point of time?
See,
And
I would
also,
just say, sorry.
yeah,
Hmm.
also,
Please go ahead.
if you can also cover the composition of the small, mid, and large cap in the multi-cap fund and the BAF.
Sure. So first, your question on is small cap attractive for a 10-year investor? I think small cap is the most attractive product for a 10-year investor. Now, importantly, when an investor is saying that he's invested for a 10-year period, he should adhere to that 10-year horizon. What I have seen in my experience is that, when you are investing in a bull market in a small cap product, your horizon is long. But as soon as you see a big correction, that horizon shortens. And that is the biggest challenge. You should not change your goalposts with market. Remember at the outset, small cap is a product which can potentially give you a higher returns and it will have higher risk. Higher risk simply means at any point of time, what could be the decline in the NAV of that product. So in simple words, the NAV can fluctuate significantly, but over a 5-year period, in fact, over a 10-year period, this product is extremely attractive for any investor. However, remember that you cannot put all eggs in one basket. And as I said, since it's highly risky, it is important to balance out the overall investment in large cap and mid caps as well. So we are very optimistic about small caps. There are large number of companies which we are ourselves invested in all our funds, be it multi-cap, small cap, or many of our other products, which are extremely good themes for next 5 years, 10 years. But the caveat there is that these are expected to remain volatile, have higher risk compared to the large cap peers. So yes, you can invest, but please adhere to your starting discipline that you are a 10-year investor.
Can
So
I,
that is one. Yeah.
yeah,
Pradeep,
can
you
I
want to
just
highlight?
add a point?
Yeah.
Because I've been reading many views in the media of late. People, some of the so-called experts coming and recommending small cap funds and small cap space with the logic that, they have not performed as well as the large cap in recent times. I don't know whether that's true or not, but to me, that is absolutely the wrong reason to invest in small cap funds. Please don't invest looking at how something has behaved in the past. Past is of no consequence. What you should look at is what do you expect from this in future. So that is the point that Vinay made now. The future potential remains good provided you are willing to absorb the volatilities and wait out for many years, maybe at least 5 years. So small cap is a good space to get in for somebody who can wait for minimum 5 years, because the future is good, not because small cap has done, poorly vis-a-vis large cap in the past. That is not the reason to invest in.
Perfect.
And Vinay, can
Saurabh,
you also give a quick cover on mid cap, like a small
Yeah,
cap?
I think so. So see, large, mid, and small are actually the cap curve which we see. So small cap is the riskiest of the capitalization with the maximum potential return. Mid cap is somewhere in between. It has slightly lower risk than small cap and potential to generate slightly lower return, but still high return compared to large caps. In large caps, amongst all the three, are the least riskiest and can potentially deliver the least returns within large, mid, and small. So, as we speak today, the way we look at attractiveness or valuations of all of these is to look at what is the potential return over a 5-year and a 10-year period. So according to us, the market is very smart today, adjusting for all the risks which are present as we go down the cap curve. the returns are almost identical for all the three segments of the market, and hence we are almost neutral in all of these segments on a peer relative basis. So that's where we are.
Saurabh,
Yeah, Pradeep.
can I suggest some? There was a question sometime back about what is our view for the next 1.5 years, etc. And obviously on equity side, we don't give a view for 1 year.
Yeah.
But I believe on the fixed income side, we have some very interesting views for the next
Correct.
1.5 years. So
Yes.
would you like to request Anindo to give our
Yeah.
views on the
Yeah,
fixed income
Pradeep.
market?
So, like, in fact, my next thing was on debt. So we have a lot of questions on debt. Anandya, is it okay if I read the questions to you and you can cover them in your talk? Is that okay with you?
Sure.
Thanks. So, another questions we have on debt. One is that view on the market for next 1.5 year. How do we see the market? And which debt funds are suitable to invest from 6 months to 1 year duration? Okay. And then what is, between the corporate bond fund, dynamic bond fund, and medium duration fund? How do you see all three funds playing out for next 2 to 3 years or 3 to 5 years? Right.
Okay.
So you have understood the thing. So someone is asking about 6 months to 1 months to 1 year horizon. Then a longer horizon. How do you see the
right.
Over to you, Anand.
So in fixed income, typically the drivers of your returns are from interest rate movements and the credit spreads, or the accrual, as we call it, the coupons or the interest that you get from time to time. So in plain and simple language, it is the capital appreciation. Am I visible? Am I audible? Hello?
Yeah, you're audible, Anand. Go ahead.
Yeah. So just my screen went blank, so that's okay. So that's why I was asking. So one of the key drivers is the capital appreciation. When does this happen? Your capital appreciation of your bonds that we hold in the portfolios typically are very sensitive to interest rate movements, and these are non-linear movements. So if the interest rate falls, the prices of the bonds go up. So it is a negative correlation to that extent. But it's not linear, like I said, it's non-linear. It doesn't mean that if 100 basis points fall in interest rate will change my portfolio valuation by 100 basis points purely on the capital appreciation perspective. The delta or the sensitivity is slightly higher. And this is something called as duration. So without going into the technicalities of the duration, as it's called, it is basically, for our simple understanding, it's the sensitivity of how the price changes with the change in interest rates. That's one of the drivers. The second is the actual fixed income, as it says, for the fixed part, that is the accrual that we keep on generating because of the coupon. Okay, so what has happened in the recent past is economy has been sliding for a while, starting from 2018 after the credit crisis started. So there was a kind of a, let's say, trade-off between actual fall in interest rates in the sovereign curve, that is the G-Secs or the interest that government pays to borrow, and that of the corporates. So obviously something that is issued by government is safe. So therefore the rates or the rates moved faster, given it's also the supply and demand. When something is more safer in a not very safe world, typically the safe assets appreciate, and that's why something that was safe, or the PSU bonds or the G-Secs, appreciated substantially. This is just the capital appreciation part. But on the other side, there was a dichotomy. The corporate bonds, as such, only the safer, the good ones did well, because people were not very sure of the rest. But something changed dramatically during the pandemic. Suddenly, the world was coming to an end, or that was the impression everybody thought, or was We heard that in the mainstream media or the financial media as well. To something like this is a stress situation, right? I mean, so things are not okay, even the mildest, or in a way to put it lightly, it was not okay. So what people did was, or both the government as well the RBI supported the markets. The financial conditions improved dramatically, and the liquidity just went up phenomenally. So and that kind of condition continued apart from the rate cuts and so on. We know the policy rates are one of the drivers, where how you benchmark everything from the bonds or the loans that the government borrows to corporates to households like you and me, the common people. Everything is linked to the policy rates. So that was also cut. Now, all this has some kind of a side effect, if you may, and the side effect, which is obvious to a certain extent and not so obvious, is the inflation. So that is the bane, basically. We all of us who are in the fixed income markets were always aware that this can happen, but since the economy was was not okay and was not cruising along as we would like to see, what we saw was the buoyancy of the liquidity that took us from, say, 7.5%, to close to 4.5%. So that's a dramatic movement in terms of interest rates falling. So what has happened to that is loans are available now at a cheaper rate. It is available to lot many people than it was available to even 6 months back. Earlier also the rates were cut, but the monies were not available to everybody. It was available to only the safe, or not everybody was giving money to anybody who wants it, but to the people whom they considered is safe. That has changed. That has changed in the last few months because of the substantial support both from RBI and the government through fiscal measures. So will this continue is the question mark, since the Vinay already shared with you that we are going through the trough, that probably we have seen the trough and it's behind us, and we are seeing probably the ramp up for the economy. So we feel that although we know that this has a side effect, the substantial liquidity that's sloshing around can push the inflation, and therefore the benefits of all these measures can go down the drain, but we do not see that liquidity that was pumped into the economy will be going anywhere anytime soon. Having said that, what would happen to the fixed income bonds? The interest rates coupons will be let's say capped to a certain extent, but the appreciation of the bonds that we just mentioned earlier when I started will keep on will continue, because there is nowhere to park the money. It has to be parked in some asset class, right? So it is either fixed income or equities or some other asset class. So with so much of liquidity and very little credit offtake, as in people are not yet building factories or there's no private investment to that extent, wherein the economy or the slackness in the economy is compressed. What do I mean by slackness is, in March, probably we expected growth rate for GDP for next several years, or the potential of the GDP was 4.5% or 5%. We heard in the talk earlier that this has fallen dramatically for this year, which would be, in a most aggressive sense, would be -5%. So what we are saying is there's a gap between 4.5% to 5%. So it's 10% slack in the economy. So for breaching that economy, slack in the economy, you need some support. And that support is through monetary policy, which will ensure interest rate to be soft for 1.5 years. And this will tighten at some point as, like everything else, things comes to normal, as we call mean, reversion to mean. That would happen at some point, but not today, not in 6 months. In our view, it is a bit away. That's our view basically on the fixed income, and our portfolios are built based on that. So we have a slightly moderate to high duration depending on the portfolios that we run, or the mandates of the portfolios. So corporate bond fund has the lowest duration in the 3 duration funds that we have in our basket. It's about 2.65, 2.7. Medium duration fund, which is slightly tight, straight-jacketed. The fund itself is like, should maintain a duration between 3 and 4. As of now, we are on the higher side of the band, close to 3.75. And dynamic bond fund, which the mandate of the fund is to take very active calls on the interest rates. And that fund has an aggressive stance as of now on interest rates and has a duration close to 6. So where should an investor put their money in the next 6 to 9 months or 1.5 years? I would say something that is less volatile. And which one would be the less volatile? Least volatile would be corporate bond fund, because it has simply the lowest duration, or the interest rate exposure. In other words, interest rate exposure for this fund is lower. Why I am saying so? Because while we have seen some data that is positive in terms of GDP outlook, growth, and the economy getting back to its feet, and so on and so forth, but we are still in a very uncertain times. We still are not like very sure that we are in course, and that's what even the central bank says. That's what even not only in India, even elsewhere. But during all this period, it is quite almost certain, to a certain extent, the liquidity will be adequate. And this is just not because the factors that I said, because also the factor that briefly Pradeep touched. It's also because of the differential of interest rates between India and elsewhere, and diversification, if you may. People would look to diversify and look for higher yields. Therefore, the inflows will either come into equity or fixed income. And if that happens, what typically happens is all markets in some sense is linked. We have already seen the UMPI model, which talks about the interest rate being the factor, but the FX markets or the Forex markets, which are equally important of interest in case of interest rate views and so on. And that also contributes to liquidity, because if you have too much dollars flowing in India, it would be harmful for the economy, which is not desirable at this time. So what RBI does is it purchases these dollars, either explicitly or implicitly. And while that happens, more monies in terms of rupee flows back into the system. So combined with the external factor that I just explained and the easy liquidity monetary stance that we have, we feel rates are going to be benign and with a positive bias in terms of bond prices, which is again softer, what I mean. So we are not ruling out interest rates to fall from here, the policy rates, but that looks a bit distant as of now, because unexpectedly the inflation have been high, the retail inflation, although we think it is picked out, especially in the winter season. Our common sense is the vegetable prices come down, and in the recent parts, that was the source of the retail inflation. And as the mainstream media, you must have heard, the source has been on the supply side constraints and the food prices. But that said, it might spread to the other side, other sectors at the other side of the things, the services and so on. So that needs to be seen, and we will take it up as we go. We'll be closely watching our inflation and the inflation outlook, but rates are not going anywhere. It's not going up anytime sooner, and definitely not very high. That's what.
Yeah. So Anindya, thanks very much for that detailed explanation. If I can summarize it, our view is that for the reasons Anindya explained in detail, we expect interest rates to remain soft. There is no likelihood, at least as far as we can see, of rates going up significantly. And our best recommendation at this stage for investors who want lower volatility would be the corporate bond fund. Right?
Yes. Thanks, Anju, and thanks, Pradeep. I would also like to add that there were more category that you can look at, which is the arbitrage category, because as markets get volatile, the returns from arbitrage go up. So if you have clients which are in high tax bracket who have a money for 3 months to 1 year, going forward, incrementally arbitrage funds can be very attractive if markets are volatile. So returns from arbitrage came down because markets was booming up and there was not much arbitrage opportunity. But now is a time when some allocation can be made into arbitrage as a category. Also there's one more question, Pradeep, if you can answer. Mudit Mathur from Bahrain, PBK, is here on the call. He has asked that if he has to choose one fund out of our equity fund to add to their SIP bouquet, which fund would that be?
Well, that's a tough question, asking me to choose. But like we said, at this stage, while we are recommending, BAF from a pure equity category, if we have to choose one fund, we have consistently recommended the multi-cap fund, because that is, what is multi-cap today, which, will soon become flexi-cap. I must clarify. So let me correct myself. So we are recommending that flexi-cap fund, because that is the one which allows the fund manager maximum freedom, allows him to move between market capitalization, large, mid, small, move assets among different sectors, no restrictions. And I think that is the one which, if you had to choose one fund, that's what we would recommend.
Thanks, Pradeep. So next question is on BAF. And I'm also picking up questions from the Facebook, from the YouTube channel. So the question is, how often do we rebalance in balance advantage fund?
Yeah. So Saurabh, we rebalance BAF on almost a daily basis. So for example, recently the markets have been extremely volatile, and because of that, we needed the rebalancing frequency has increased. So technically we can rebalance daily, but practically it depends on the market circumstances. In very volatile market circumstances, it happens daily. In less volatile circumstances, it may happen slightly less frequently.
And do you also recommend SIP in BAF kind of product? If I have money for 5 years, 10 years, should I do SIP?
Yeah, I think what we have said that BAF, and in fact the asset allocation category is a category where you can invest lump sum.
And SIPs?
So SIPs, of course, SIP is never discouraged. It is definitely encouraged, but in this category there is an automatic rebalancing feature. So yeah, we would encourage both SIPs and lump sum in this category.
Thanks, Vinay. I have also a very interesting question. Which has been asked that this whole fair value concept is very subjective. How come our fund house is so objective about the whole thing?
Yeah, so while it is subjective, it is far less subjective than the popular P multiple approach. So I think what the entire approach tells us is it breaks down the company's valuation into 4 different factors. And what happens is that we are very clear about a lot of these factors and the underlying assumptions to that on an explicit basis. So we know exactly what we are paying for. But when you are just looking at P multiple, you don't know many things about the company. You just are at the mercy of looking at historical P multiple or look at the P multiple of competing companies in the same sector. I think that is the reason why we have the entire approach helping us understand and be far more scientific and about this and be quantitative about this. So for example, when you look at the P multiple and look at the average P and then think that the market is cheap and expensive, I think that is far less scientific than the way we are proposing. So yes, there are certain subjectivities involved, but these are far lesser in proportion to what we would be subjected to when you look at the popular approaches. So yeah, I think this, according to us, is in that sense the best approach.
Thanks, Vinay. Mr. Venkateshwaran from Chennai asked a very relevant question that in today's time, the biggest challenge faced by investors, especially who are depending on interest income, the interest, incomes have really come down.
Yes.
Okay. What is your suggestion and recommendation to, especially to people who are retirees, senior citizen? What should they do in this low interest rate scenario, right? And how can they do the financial planning? Because they have been going on for long and it has impacted them.
Yeah, I think this is the category of people who are the hardest hit over the last many years, and the popular quantitative easing and lower interest rate policies of central banks across the world is hitting hardest this entire category of people who are actually savers and who depend on interest income for sustenance. I would say that yes, interest income is low today, uh, but we need to remember that don't fall prey to schemes or assets which supposedly increase your interest income while taking far higher risk. You need to remember that, like everything, even this lower interest regime might be transitory. We don't know till when. It may be 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year, but there will be a time period when interest rates might not be as low as they are today. But you need to ensure that you keep your capital safe and take calculated risk and diversify your assets. Don't fall prey to a lot of schemes which supposedly increase your interest income, as I said, while taking far higher risk, which might erode your capital. Have some exposure to higher risk assets, but the risk has to be understood and has to be recommended very thoroughly by and has to be judged very thoroughly, sorry, by the financial advisor for this category of people, because as I said, they are dependent on this capital. They do not have any way of recovering this capital back if they lose it, and hence we as advisors and professional investors, we have to be very, very careful in dealing with this category of people. So yeah, sympathies with this category of uh, people. Saurabh, you are on mute.
Thanks, Vinay. The next question is from Mr. Shripal, Invest Partners India. In the lockdown, how are the fund managers managing the research and checking data on the ground level?
So I think one of the best innovations which has happened in this lockdown is the realization that we can work through virtual means, and there is a possibility to collaborate to do a lot of work while not meeting face to face, at least on a physical basis. So I can tell you in terms of meetings, the number of meetings which the team has had, and I'm talking about the virtual meetings, this has gone up almost 50%. So let's say if we were doing 200 meetings in a quarter, this number has now gone up to 300 meetings in a quarter. And the reason is because the analysts are not wasting time shuffling bit from one place to another. They can quickly switch off their video in one of the meetings and can switch on the video in the other meeting. They are having far more productive time talking to company managements about what things they want. And the company managements are also very much forthcoming, because they can at one point of time talk to a lot of people without the constraints of a physical meeting room. Similarly, fund managers are also having reasonably good and on a regular basis meetings with their team, uh, partially led by this innovation of video conferencing. I think Zoom, Teams, etc. were less popular before the pandemic, and now they have become lifesavers. So I think this is how the entire operation in terms of fund management and research is being managed. And I would say that it is, if not better, it is at par with what we were doing before the pandemic.
Thanks, Vinay. And also, we had some interesting data, right? That our number of interaction with management went up
Yeah, yeah. So that's
lockdown
what I was
significantly.
highlighting, that we were doing approximately 200 meetings per quarter across all the team members before the lockdown, and now this number has reached uh, 300 per quarter.
Thanks, Vinay. Uh, so, I'm combining two, three questions. And one is that if you have to, some people have missed out on the equity market. They were not able to enter in last 7, 8 months. How do you advise them to look at the market now? And how much premium is market really in right now?
See, one of the problems is that, there is a fear of missing out. It's a very popular fear. So the reason why many of these people did not invest in the market is because they were scared about the market. They thought that the market will tank, that the market is in a bottomless pit. That was one of the big reasons. And if that was actually the reason, and then they are trying to time the market now, it is not a good time. I would advise such investors to be far more patient and invest in a dynamic asset allocation product, simply because that product will resolve their the problems related to emotions and psychology, which most investors tend to commit because of market fluctuations. So a balanced and a dynamic or a dynamic advantage or a dynamic asset allocation product resolves most of these issues for those investors. And hence, I would recommend that these investors invest in such products now, so that whenever there is an opportunity to increase allocation to equities, the funds will take the opportunity to invest in markets instead of they doing it on themselves, because they might not be looking at markets on a dispassionate basis, unlike the funds which is doing it.
Uh, Thanks, Vinay. Just hold on, give me, yeah. So, Mr. Suresh Suana from Bahrain asked a question that is our analysis on face value for last 8 to 10 years available online on our website?
No, this is proprietary, and this is very much internal. So basically, our job as professional investors is to invest in companies which are good quality, run by good managements at a reasonable price. The way we determine this reasonable price is by determining their fair values, right? And because we are determining these fair values, we are also we are able to generate the fair value for the market as well. And that is why we tend to publish this infrequently. We also use this fair value for our balance advantage fund model. So all of this is very proprietary in nature, and hence what we tend to do is we tend to publish this on a regular basis, maybe on a quarter basis, and infrequently when there is a material change, we also come out with a mid-quarter update. So yes, we do not publish it on our website, at least as a data series, but there are quarterly presentations which we prepare every quarter, which contain data on market and fair values.
And that is also uploaded on our website
Yeah,
at the same time.
that is available freely on our website.
Vinay, the next question is, the market is currently at an all-time high, but still some of the leading mutual fund returns in the last 3 years, especially in the small cap value and infra funds, are negative.
Yeah,
And it is,
so
the people are finding it difficult to make investor understand the markets are all-time high and last 3 year returns are negative.
yeah, so I think the advisors need to do more research now, and I don't want to self-advertise. So we have done a good job, and our funds have done very well. So I can just tell the community at large that that almost all our funds are doing well in relation to the peer group, in relation to the benchmarks, and hence I don't think so our investors are facing this kind of a problem.
So Vinay, I know this question has been covered, but there have been questions coming in, and I think the general perception is that people think our BAF is very aggressive given the current market scenario at the equity allocation. So can you just again address that compared to peer
Yeah.
group? Are we really aggressive? And if you also can touch a bit on the moving average, how we do it, so probably it will make you understand better.
Yeah, sure. See, I think the problem with most of the market analysts and why they feel our BAF is aggressive or conservative. I think 2 years back people said that our BAF was very conservative. So it depends on the market's levels and how the market valuations are. The one big reason why these questions come up is because our BAF model is based on fair value, which is very different than the popular PE approach. Most of the products in this category tend to utilize a variation of PE multiple or price to book multiple for Nifty, and hence their conclusions as to whether markets are cheap or expensive are also very, very similar. We are different because we are using a very different approach, and hence at times our balance advantage fund appears aggressive, at times it appears cheap or conservative. However, I would just want to highlight that clearly we have now a 3-year track record. It is not a short duration, and in good times and in bad times the product and the model has clearly proved its mettle. So if it was a new product, we could have said that over a period of time will do well, but now we can thumb the table with confidence that this product and this model is doing very well, and the basic premise that fair value is superior to the popular PE approach is clearly showing its results. So to answer your question, we are not either conservative or aggressive. We have a unique approach of determining market value, and that is why sometimes our funds allocation will be very, very different than everyone else. So that's how it is. Second is, the fund tends to use moving average for market levels. Why do we use moving average? That is simply because the markets tend to fluctuate a lot. This moving average concept helps to some extent take advantage of the near term positive or negative trend in the market. So the investor does not have a very volatile outcome. So for example, sometimes the market is down 5%, 3%, sometimes it is up 2-3%, and in that can cause a material change in asset allocation and can bring in huge volatility plus trading cost. We do not want this kind of a thing to happen. So this model uses a moving average for market levels, and hence over a period of time you will observe that that the overall outcome for an investor is far superior than many of our peers.
If I could just add
Yep.
a supplement, what Vinay said, we have a model, and the important thing is that we stick to that model. So, having got a model, we don't then try to be subjective on that model. So we don't go by, views like market looks expensive. It doesn't matter what it looks. We go by what the data says. So that is why, irrespective of whatever is the perception, public perception, we go by the data, we go by the model and stick to that model. So that is why, the fund has been able to perform quite well so far. And that is also why we have been at times different from many of our peers in the market.
Thanks, Pradeep. If you can also take the next two questions. So the first question is your view on the active versus passive funds, which is ETF versus actively managed fund. Also, the follow-up question is, are we looking to launch an index fund for all the three caps together? And a third question also, I just repeated, if you can take it, is that Mr. Rajan from Hosur has said that, are we planning to introduce the value transfer plan, which is not a systematic transfer plan, but transfer plan based on the markets moving up or down? Because he believes, and he tested in real time, it is very helpful even in negative markets and the lateral market movements. So your view on all this?
Okay. So as far as the active versus passive comparison is concerned, in a developed market, in a mature market, like for example, say the US market, what happens is that, the assumption is that it is a perfect market. Everybody knows everything, or whatever is there to be known is known to everybody. So it becomes difficult for people to outperform, or fund managers to outperform the benchmark. And many fund managers end up underperforming the benchmark, because when they try to outperform, they take risks, and sometimes it doesn't work out and they may underperform. So the argument is that you are better off sticking to a passive fund, because then you are guaranteed of getting at least the market returns, the index returns. Now, Indian market, our belief is that the situation is still vastly different. There is scope for generating alpha. It is not a perfect market, so there is still scope for identifying stocks that perform better, scope for identifying multi-baggers through fundamental analysis itself. And that is something that many fund managers, not only Union, there are other good fund managers also in the market who have demonstrated that it's possible to generate alpha consistently. So we believe that, as far as Indian market is concerned, the active funds still offer significant value over passive funds. Now, that doesn't mean that as Union Mutual Fund, we will never offer passive funds. We may, although we have no immediate plans. We may at some stage, but if we do that, that is not because we believe that passive will do better. It is for people who believe that passive will do better, we may offer that product. So it is just a way, when we offer a small cap fund, after launching a large cap fund, it is not because we believe small cap will do better than large cap. No. There are people who believe small cap will do better and they want to have exposure, and we are offering that product. So as a full service mutual fund, we may at some stage offer a passive fund, but for current situation, for the foreseeable future, our belief is that active funds offer significant opportunities to perform better than the market and better than the passive fund. So that is also one reason why, the passive space has not really taken off in India. And of all the assets that you see in ETF, the huge chunk is coming from some institutional investors like the Employee Provident Fund. So the retail participation is also lower because they are seeing active funds doing better over the long term. So what was the last point, Saurabh?
Pradeep, are we looking to launch a index
Value
fund for all the
transfer
three caps? Yeah, value transfer plan.
Value transfer plan. See, basically our philosophy, and this is my personal philosophy as well as a fund house, we try to keep things simple. So if you ask me, for most investors, a simple, SIP will do wonders. Those who need an STP, a simple STP is normally good enough. And we try not to complicate things. Because if simple things can produce results, why complicate is the question. Because anything that we are not able to explain to investors and make them understand can be misunderstood and missold. So that's the reason why we haven't gone for things like this. Now, having said that, we will certainly evaluate, and if we find that it's worthwhile, definitely we'll look at it.
Thanks, Pradeep. Vinay, can I give you a couple of questions? So one question is, in the BAF, do we use a simple or exponential moving average?
Simple. We have tried exponential. It doesn't give too much benefit.
Okay. And Mr. Rajen Joshi from Pune has asked that in our small and multi-cap fund, what is the maximum cash allocation that we have kept in mind in percentage terms?
So, okay. So all our funds, except the balance advantage and the hybrid equity fund, we will not take any cash calls because these are not asset allocation products. Our endeavor is to remain invested more than 95% of the fund assets into equity and equity related assets for that fund at all points of time, and hence we will not take any cash call. So this is applicable to small and mid cap space as well.
Thanks, Vinay. Someone has also asked that what's your view on the PLI scheme of the government, and can it have a big impact in the times to come?
Yeah. So in fact, it is a very prominent and a very important scheme. We have incorporated it as a driver for our GDP growth rate also. So by various estimates, this can potentially add about 30 to 40 basis point to GDP growth over the next 4 to 5 years. So yes, it is a meaningful driver for GDP growth. We are yet to see the finer details of the scheme for various other sectors. It has only been given out for sectors like mobile phones.
Okay. Anjo, there's a question on fixed income on the YouTube channel. Banks like IndusInd, IDFCs are offering 7%. How does one go and pitch a corporate bond fund when you have banks offering 7% also, IDFC and IndusInd? Or Vinay, you want to answer that?
It's a fair question. Yeah, Vinay, you can go, or Vinay, I can address.
Yeah. So yeah, I think more than fixed income, it's actually about taking a higher level of risk. So as you go down the risk curve, the rates go up. So for example, at one point of time, when market rates were at about 7-8%, some of the real estate companies were offering 16 to 18%. So look at extremes today. Would you give money to a real estate developer at even 16, 17 or 18%? Maybe the answer is no, because you are more worried about safety of capital. So there is a gradual curve of risk and reward. So when I talk about a real estate developer, it is a very high risk and very high interest rate scenario, and hence you are able to imagine that I won't give. But when you are talking about some of these banks which are offering higher rates, think about it. There is a reason why they are offering you higher rates. The reason is that they are risky. There is a risk to your capital. You should never think that your money is completely safe in any institution which has fundamental risk. Today, there is risk may not be visible just because there is a tag of a bank or something like that attached to them. Underlying risk remains. So as I was discussing about low interest rates and people need to ensure that their capital is safe, same thing applies here. If someone is giving a higher return, there is a reason why he is borrowing at a higher rate and is able to give you higher rates of return, because he is taking higher risk and lending it to even riskier people. And this risk means risk of capital coming back, and that is the reason why they are paying you higher rates. So I would just say that please be careful when you are investing in such entities. You need to diversify your assets. At best, you can put in some portion of your capital in, if you want, in some riskier assets, but corporate bond funds or medium duration funds, these are staple products which definitely take care of investing into high quality institutions to ensure that your capital is not at risk.
So
So
If I can,
I would just say that just one point which I want to highlight and make it is that, you know, investors should always remember the purpose of investing into equity or fixed income. The purpose of investing in equity is to take higher risk to ensure we get a higher return. And the purpose of investing in fixed income is that we keep money safe so that we get a steady rate income and we can get our principal back. We should not mix both. If you want higher return from fixed income and you want a stable return from equity, it won't happen. It will give you a wrong outcome. Yeah, Pradeep.
yeah, if I can just add, public memory is short, but I'm sure, people remember this whole story about AT1 bonds, additional tier 1 bonds. There are still these bonds, and there were these bonds, going at issued by various banks, offering, 11, 12, 13%, sometimes even more in the past. And there were many investors who asked us, why are you not investing? Okay, we had our concerns about investing in those bonds. And as a result, I think we may be one of the few AMCs, if not the only AMC in the market, which never bought any of these AT1 bonds, because we were not comfortable with the risk. Now, everybody knows, what happened to the bonds issued by some of those banks. So, point is, things which you think, which you believe will not happen, can also happen. Risks which are very low on probability can also happen. And the question that you need to ask yourself is, if it happens, can you absorb that? Can you live with that? If you can live with that, take that higher risk. But if you cannot live with that, then you should not touch it. Because any risk is okay if you know what you are getting into and you think you can accept that risk. So today in the market also, there will be instruments giving you 10%, also 12%. But ask yourself, why is somebody offering you that kind of high return? What is the risk? And is there a risk that, you will lose your capital? If that risk is a real risk, then you need to be very careful.
Thank you, Pradeep. With that, we come to the end of the session. And just to give you a quick sum up on our view, on the equity side, clearly our view is that markets have entered into an expensive zone. They are not in the bubble zone. They have got into expensive zone. So markets for a discount, they have come into expensive zone. From a 5-year perspective, equity still looks like an attractive asset class compared to other investment options. What we are advising people is that people who have increased their equity exposure in the last few months, maybe it is time to trim it down. We are not asking people to get out of equity fund, but trim down the exposure and incrementally look at products like Balance Advantage Fund and Hybrid Equity Fund, which are the allocation products for the time to come. As a fund house, we endeavor to give a view whenever things change, and we continue with that. We will continue with that. And on the fixed income side, clearly our view is that interest rates are not looking to go up at least for next 6 months. While interest rate cut may or may not happen, there is a strong probability of the yields coming down without the rate cut, because there's a gush of liquidity coming in. So the fear of inflation is more towards supply side right now. Till the time demand side inflation comes into play, we do not see a fear on the interest rate moving up. And with that, I would like to close and thank you once again for joining in. Wishing all of you a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. May 2021 be full of hope and we come back to normal life. Pradeep, Vinay, and you want to give any closing remarks to people over here?
Well, I think, I don't want to take up more time, but thank you all once again. We really value not only your participation today, your support to Union Mutual Fund, the interest that you are showing, and that itself is very encouraging for us. It keeps motivating us to do better. So we can assure you that, we will continue to act in the interest of investors. We will try to do always what is best for investors. and we will try to communicate transparently. If you have anything to convey to us, please feel free to write to us, and we will certainly take your suggestions on board. But do continue to support us. It means a lot to us. And Happy New Year once again.
Same here. So I would just want to highlight that as a fund house, we will work tirelessly to ensure that whatever good can be done from investments perspective, we will do. We will do our hard work to ensure that the best quality professional investment management is available to all our investors. And with that, I would just wish all the participants a very happy new year in advance, and a Merry Christmas as well in advance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very happy new year to everybody. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. And we can close the call. Arvind?
Bye-bye.
We can close the call.
Arvind.